Quote, Love, unquote, by New Amsterdam. Chapter 8. He wakes up to a leaden weight against his chest, somehow comforting rather than suffocating. As Kirishima opens his eyes, he sees the ocean dyed red and orange by the setting sun. Lying across his chest is Bakugo, fast asleep. The sand is gritty underneath Kirishima's back, where he's been pushed off the beach blanket, and he's cold where the ocean breeze passes over his bare skin. Still, he's reluctant to move. Bakugo's face is softer in sleep, even though there remains a line of worry between his brows. His lips are gently parted as he breathes through his mouth, and one of his arms is draped over Kirishima's waist. Kirishima has fantasized about waking up to the sight of an unfairly good-looking man before. But his daydreams are never like this, never this soft, like a watercolor painting. He holds his breath, tenderness welling up inside of him, as he looks down at Bakugo and imagines kissing him awake. Damn it, Kirishima mutters, betrayed by his own thoughts, his own desires. Immediately, Bakugo stirs. The crease between his brow deepens, and he makes an unhappy noise as he curls closer to Kirishima. Kirishima's heart beats furiously against his chest as he says, Sorry. It's an instinctive response, the same one he makes whenever he wakes up one of his roommates too early in the morning. But it's exactly the wrong thing to do at this moment, because it causes Bakugo's eyes to flutter open as he wakes. Kirishima sucks in a breath and braces himself for impact. He's sure that at any second Bakugo will register exactly how they've been sleeping, and there'll be hell to pay. But Bakugo doesn't explode. His eyes go from clouded to sharply alert, and he pushes himself up into a seated position as he rubs at his eyes with the heels of his hands. All the while, Kirishima holds his breath and waits. What? Bakugo growls, after a moment. His voice is sleep-rough, and Kirishima desperately tries not to think of other situations that would cause his voice to pitch that low. What the fuck are you staring at, Kirishima? I'm waiting for you to realize you want to kill me, Kirishima thinks. But the moment doesn't arrive. Bakugo proceeds to brush the sand off his skin, shivering in the cool air. He doesn't move away from Kirishima, even though their legs are practically tangled together. He doesn't avert his gaze from Kirishima's bare chest, doesn't put any space between them. It's then that Kirishima realizes Bakugo did not wake up to the same situation that he had. Bakugo did not wake to fantasies of a romantic kiss, or the impossibility of lying next to his longtime crush. The only reason Kirishima is embarrassed right now is because he fears his reactions will reveal too much. He's scared that Bakugo will realize how he feels. But Bakugo can be utterly casual, can sit too close beside him without giving a single fuck, because this doesn't mean anything to him. It's a role he's playing, and he needn't fear revealing feelings he doesn't have. What's wrong with you? Bakugo says, shoving half-heartedly at Kirishima's side. You look like you're gonna puke. Kirishima isn't nauseous, not unless what he's about to throw up is his heart. The furrow on Bakugo's brow deepens, confusion and irritation warring over his face. What are you? Kirishima, Bakugo! Time to get up! They turn simultaneously to see Ashido and Uraraka running up the beach towards them. They're both smiling widely, but when Ashido spots the two of them, her expression turns sly. You guys have been sleeping for hours, she complains, crossing her arms over her chest. Kirishima, come hang out with me. Bakugo lets out a huffy breath. Maybe he wanted to get away from you losers. Don't be rude, Uraraka says. And anyway, Kirishima-kun came here to spend time with all of us, didn't you? Kirishima smiles weakly as he looks around at the three of them. So far, he's proven nearly incapable of saying no to any of these people. We could all hang out together, he suggests, grabbing Bakugo by the elbow so that he can hoist them both to their feet. Bakugo sputters and edges out of his grip. Gross. That's kind of sweet, Uraraka says, tapping one finger against her chin. She looks at Ashido and says, "Bakugo-kun doesn't want to share his boyfriend with us." "Too bad," Ashido says, grabbing Kirishima's hand and tugging him forward. "I had dibs first, Bakugo." She sticks her tongue out. "Fuck off, Black Eyes," Bakugo grouses, stumping forward so that the four of them are walking in a line. Kirishima reaches back to grab the beach blanket, draping it over his arm as he walks between Bakugo and Ashido. Uraraka walks on Bakugo's other side, still wearing a thoughtful expression. When Kirishima accidentally catches her eye, he blushes and looks away. Yaoyozuru has a lot of ideas about what a proper beach trip entails. The picnic meals have been one item on her list, and another is dinner around a bonfire. They move their party up the beach to where a few fire pits are marked out, and it's Todoroki who kneels in the sand and gets the blaze started. They settle in a circle around the glowing flames, just after the sun is set completely, hoodies and t-shirts thrown on in a hurry as the night grows colder. "You know what goes great with bonfires?" Kaminari says, tapping his fingers against his thigh. "No," Yaoyozuru says, leaning towards him with rapt attention. "I don't." Kaminari grins and puts both of his hands together in finger guns. "Music, of course." Yaoyozuru claps her hands together, nodding. "Of course. We've never had musicians with us before, but you all must play something. I haven't even gotten to see you in concert yet." Jiro, sitting next to Kaminari, sits up with a mild look of panic on her features. We're a rock band. That's not really your scene, is it?" Yaoyozuru frowns thoughtfully. "I like music," she says, "and I'm sure I'd like anything you were a part of, Jiro-san." Jiro laughs nervously. If you think so." On the other side of their lopsided circle, Bakugo rolls his eyes and leans further against Kirishima. "Shit. Ponytail's so obvious." Kirishima blinks at him. "What do you mean?" Bakugo gives him a flat look that says nothing so much as, "You're an idiot and I don't know why I hang out with you." But then he waves a hand towards Yaoyozuru and Jiro. "Yaoyozuru, whatever the stuck-up rich version of getting into someone's pants is, that's what she's trying with your bandmate over there." Kirishima chokes on a laugh. "What? No, seriously? Like I said, it's fucking obvious." Bakugo takes a sip from the soda he's nursing, shaking his head. "No wonder everyone loses their goddamn minds when someone comes out. This gay shit really is contagious." This time, Kirishima laughs properly. "Can't argue with you there. But Jiro's been out for as long as I've known her, at least." Bakugo makes a non-committal noise. "Good news for Ponytail, then." Kirishima can't help but wonder how that would play out. He's never heard anything in the media about Yaoyozuru liking women. Not everyone is as resilient as Bakugo, who was outed so unceremoniously. "Kirishima!" Jiro calls out, waving one hand at him. "Get over here, we're gonna play." Sure enough, someone has procured the 2 acoustic guitars that Jiro and Kirishima brought with them to the beach house. Kirishima smiles an apology at Bakugo as he extracts himself from his side, going over to join the rest of Riot. He takes one of the guitars and sits next to Jiro, Ashido and Kaminari on either side of them. The others, Yaoyozuru, Sero, Uraraka, Ida, Midoriya, and Todoroki, gather around so that everyone is on one side of the fire. Bakugo trudges over last, sitting down with Todoroki and Ida when he makes sure that Midoriya is sitting on the other side of the group with Uraraka. The eyes are on all 4 of them as Jiro starts strumming out a steady rhythm. Ashido picks up the lines of the song. It's not one of theirs, but instead an old classic that calls to mind the fleeting days of summer and youth. It's a crowd pleaser, and when it's through, Yaoyozuru leads the others in rapturous applause. Bakugo sits with his arms crossed over his chest, frowning. "Keep going!" Uraraka calls out, and so they oblige. It's easy to get lost in playing music, especially in such a casual setting. Kirishima strums his guitar, following Jiro's lead through a series of songs, as Kaminari tops out beats against his thighs and punctuates their rhythms with claps. Ashido pulls them along with her voice, as enticing as the sirens when they can all hear the ocean waves crashing behind them. When they've made it through a couple songs, Jiro nudges Kirishima in the side. "How about that new one you've been working on?" "I haven't taught Ashido the lyrics yet," Kirishima protests. Beside him, Ashido lets out an exaggerated sigh. "So? You can sing it." "No one wants to hear that," Kirishima insists. "You're being stupid," Ashido says. She addresses their audience. "Tell him he's being stupid." "You can do it, Kirishima-kun," Uraka says, giving him a thumbs up. Bakugo, on the other hand, glares him down. "You're being stupid." Ashido grins at him when he says it. Surrounded by an eager crowd, Kirishima gulps a breath and feels his heart speed up in his chest. It's not that he doesn't sing, of course he does. He sits at his window and writes songs all day, singing without any self-consciousness. He sings when the band practices together, just the four of them. He'd sung his entire life, and then when he'd met Ashido, it'd been the two of them singing together. He doesn't want to call it stage fright. He gets up on a stage nearly every night of his life, and plays before the kind of crowds that present mic draws. But he's never managed to use his own voice when performing. Instead, it's Ashido who sings his lyrics, and he wants her to do it, wants the band to come together over the feelings he puts into words. But when someone else sings the words, they change meaning. They aren't his anymore, not in quite the same way. There's a safety in that. He can hide the true depths of his feelings, because he's not the one singing them to the world. But now, with 10 pairs of eyes on him, he has no excuses. He isn't standing on a stage, surrounded by strangers. Instead, there's the comfortable intimacy of the fire's glow, and the distant sounds of the ocean. There's Ashido and Kaminari and Jiro surrounding him, and Bakugo sitting right across from him. It's Bakugo he's looking at when he strums out the right chord. He smiles as he starts to sing, even though the song isn't necessarily a happy one. The lyrics come to him easily, since he's been scribbling them out for weeks now, refining them. Now the story comes easily. The feeling lives deep down inside of you, as sure as blood in your veins. There's something you won't notice unless you think to look for it, because it's a part of you before you even realize it. Like oxygen, you don't know that you rely on it until it's missing. But there's a reason you keep the truth hidden, even from yourself, because once you give it a name, once you acknowledge it, there's nowhere left to hide. You're not the only one painfully aware of the truth. Everyone else can see it now too. And that's the riskiest thing, because something seen can become something rejected. Your feelings, safe when they are unknown, are vulnerable when brought into the light. You keep pretending because it's easier than admitting you're in love. Kirishima's fingers pause against his guitar before his voice stops. He looks down, catches a breath, and then he lifts his gaze. 9 people are facing him, their attention displayed in different ways. Ida and Yaoyorozu are leaning forward, like they can catch more of the song that way. Midoriya has one hand cupped over his mouth, gaze sharp and analytical. Todoroki's eyes are closed, and Uraraka is swaying in time to the echoes of the music. Sero catches Kirishima's eye and grins widely. But Bakugo sits in the shifting shadows caused by the fire, and glares, his eyes burning like smoldering embers. Kirishima lets out a hiccuping laugh, then sets his guitar aside. "It's not really finished," he says, by way of an apology. "Usually we work on all the songs together, but that one's still just me, so." "So?" Kaminari says derisively, planting a hand on the top of Kirishima's head. "Dude, shut up! That was amazing!" And then, all around him, the others start agreeing. Yaoyorozu and Ida are clapping, and Sero is calling out praise, and Ashido is wearing a "I told you so" expression. Kirishima's entire face goes red, but he can't help but smile through his embarrassment. Moisture gathers at the corner of his eyes, but he brushes it away impatiently. Surrounded by these people, each of whom is immensely talented in their own way, Kirishima thought he would feel inadequate. But instead, he's surrounded by warmth and acceptance, and his heart has never felt so full before. But then he looks up and catches Bakugo's eye, again, and he wonders how they went from leaning against each other on the other side of the fire, to Bakugo staring at him with a cold anger in his eyes. The fire has gone down to embers, but everyone is still laying out against the sand, too lazy and content to move just yet. Jiro is leaning against Kaminari as she holds out a hand and displays the tattoo, inked across the inner portion of her forearm, a treble clef against the 5 lines of a musical staff, and then a line of precise notes. Yaoyorozu traces her fingers across the tattoo, before she's aware of it, then sits back up with pink cheeks. Is it just random notes, or a specific song? It's a song, Jiro tells her. Her cheeks are getting redder too. Instead of elaborating, she lifts her other hand to show off a second tattoo on her wrist. This one is in color, deep purple and black ink forming a jagged speech bubble, like the kind found in comic books. Inside the speech bubble block letters read, Riot. For the band, Yaoyorozu says, nodding. That's a lot of dedication. Jiro shrugs, thumbing over the tattoo as she sits up. Well, we're in this together now. We all went and got tattoos at the same time, after we recorded our first song together. We knew it was something special. That's right, Kaminari cuts in. He lifts the hem of his tank to show off the yellow and black version of the same tattoo that's inked against his hip bone. We all match. Everyone is following the conversation now, and they turn to Kirishima next. He shrugs and points out the same tattoo, his red and black, on his bicep. You guys have already seen mine. I wasn't even wearing a shirt for most of the day. We didn't realize it was special then, Uraka tells him. Kirishima grins. The name was definitely my idea, but it wouldn't mean anything if it wasn't the 4 of us. So yeah, it's pretty special. All eyes are on Ashido. She's been laying on her side next to Uraka, but now she sits up and turns around so that her back is facing everyone else. She pulls the neck of her t-shirt down, revealing the black and pink tattoo on the back of her shoulder. You have one too? Sero's voice echoes out into the night air, shocked. Ashido whips around to stare at him. What's that supposed to mean? Of course I do. Sero waves his hands in front of his face, trying to backpedal. Oh, yeah, of course. I didn't mean... Ashido's eyes narrow, glowing yellow like a cat's in the low light. No, I think you did. What are they talking about? Jiro mutters to Kirishima. And Kirishima thinks he can guess. Can hear the ghosts of an old argument starting to stir. He wishes he could stop it. It just didn't seem like something you'd do, Sero says, deciding to stand his ground. I thought maybe you'd move on, or... You were never one to share the spotlight, Mino. I was just surprised. Ashido purses her lips like she's trying to hold her tongue. But then she fails. How do you know what I would do? Or how I feel? And of course I share the spotlight. We're a group. You didn't used to be, Sero says, a bit helplessly. You were solo for a long time, Mina, and even now you're sort of the focus. I was 17. Ashido seethes, her voice burning. She's on her feet now. And you were the one who left, remember? So how would you know whether I can share the spotlight, or who's the focus of our band? None of that has anything to do with you. Sero is uncomfortable with Ashido's ire directed at him, but his brow scrunches with frustration. You're still the only one singing, aren't you? Even though we all heard what Kirishima is capable of. Now he has to intervene. Hey, don't blame Ashido for— Just shut up, Sero! Ashido yells, stamping her foot ineffectually in the sand. If I'm so awful, why were you ever even with me? You could have stayed away, you know. I didn't ask for you back. She pivots on her heel, grabbing her things off the ground, and she stomps away from the fire and towards the path leading back to the beach house. Everyone is shocked into silence. Eijirou is the first to move, jumping to her feet and running after Ashido. Yaoyorozu and Uraraka share a look, and they both follow. Kaminari rounds on Sero. What the hell was that? Why do you go after her like that? I wasn't going after her, Sero says, crossing his arms over his chest. And you weren't there before, so— I know her now, Kaminari says, frowning. Ashido's a good person. She's not like using us or whatever. She'd never do that. Sero casts a furtive glance in Kirishima's direction. She wouldn't, Kirishima reiterates. You should go apologize to her in the morning. Give her some space for now, and let's just all get back to the house. Ida, Todoroki, and Midoriya have been pretending like they haven't been privy to all of this. Now, they enthusiastically start rounding up the rest of the gear. Kaminari deflates a bit, though his movements are snappish as he works with Sero to fold up the blankets. Finally, they're ready to head back. Todoroki says in a soft aside to Midoriya, I thought we were the ones in a teen drama. Kirishima grimaces. He doesn't think of it that way, but he also acknowledges that he wasn't at the center of things when Sero and Ashido broke up. He'd been a sounding board and a shoulder to cry on for both of them, but he'd only understood their fight as much as it pertained to him. Years later, he's still uncomfortable with how it all went down. Sero had told him that if he didn't get out of Ashido's shadow, he'd be lost in it forever. But it wasn't Ashido's idea to start Riot, or ever her decision to be the sole vocalist for the group. Whatever Sero thinks happened, he's wrong. At the same time, Kirishima can't blame him. Having a fundamental disconnect from someone you care too much about, that's pitiable, not contemptible. But if this old fight is going to blow up again, he doesn't want to be the excuse for it anymore. There's no peace to be found tonight. When they reach the beach house, Yaoyorozu emerges from one of the bedrooms to inform them of their room assignments. Ashido is sharing with Jiro, Uraraka with Yaoyorozu. Kaminari is banking with Ida and Sero, and then there's another room for Todoroki and Midoriya, which leaves. It's only a vacation home, after all, Yaoyorozu tells Bakugo and Kirishima. We don't have 11 bedrooms, but I'm not fussy enough to think that the two of you would want separate beds anyway. It's a very comfortable room, Kirishima-san, and I'm sure you'll have everything you need. Oh yeah, I'm not complaining, Kirishima says, even as he casts a nervous glance in Bakugo's direction. He definitely isn't happy, angry energy visible in the tense curl of his spine. Listen, can I talk to Ashido? For a second? Yaoyorozu smiles sympathetically, but shakes her head. Jiro-san's already got her to go to sleep. She was very upset, but I'm sure she'll want to see you in the morning. Kirishima stifles a sigh. Chances are, in the morning, Ashido will act like none of this ever happened. She's resilient that way. But she isn't so confident that she's never been hurt. Thanks, he says to Yaoyorozu, then shoulders his bag and heads down the hall. It truly is a massive bedroom. A large double bed dominates most of it, but one wall is made up entirely of glass panels that look out onto the ocean, shielded only by sheer curtains. There's an ensuite bathroom, which Bakugo heads to without preamble. The water starts running a minute later. Bakugo emerges from the bathroom with skin ruddy from the shower's heat, wearing loose cropped pants and a clean tank top. He towels off his hair and doesn't say anything to Kirishima. Kirishima gathers his own bundle of clothes and toiletries, heading for the bathroom. Bakugo isn't usually one for ambient conversation, but there's something pointed about his current silence. Kirishima doesn't know what he did to earn Bakugo's anger, but it's like they've taken a leap backwards just when they started to make progress. He leaves his hair loose and damp around his shoulders after his shower, pulling on a t-shirt and boxers. When he re-enters the main room, Bakugo is laying on one side of the bed, on top of the covers. He has his arms folded behind his head as he stares at the ceiling. Kirishima sits down on the edge of the bed. "What are you thinking about?" Bakugo blinks, a grimace ghosting over his features before he makes his face go blank once more. "Is it the bed thing?" Kirishima asks. "'Cause we already basically slept together earlier, and you didn't seem to mind that." An angry flush colors Bakugo's cheeks. "Just shut up." "I'm serious," Kirishima continues. "It's not that big of a deal, is it? Kaminari and I fall asleep together all the time, same with Ashido. Chihiro's a little pickier, and I believe that you are too, except for earlier." Bakugo moves so quickly that Kirishima barely registers what he's doing, until Bakugo's foot slams into Kirishima's side, kicking him off the bed. Kirishima lands in a heap on the ground, head spinning as he tries to reorient himself. "Shut up." Bakugo is back in the same position, lying down and staring at the ceiling. It's like he never moved. Kirishima pulls himself to his feet, staring at Bakugo with confusion. "Dude, what's your problem?" "You!" Bakugo snaps. "You're really pissing me off." Kirishima blinks. "I didn't do anything." Bakugo swallows a curse, rolling his eyes towards the ceiling. "You don't even fucking see it." He curls upwards until he's in a seated position, staring Kirishima down with a fire in his eyes. "See what?" Kirishima snaps, truly frustrated. Why does Bakugo keep expecting him to read his mind? Bakugo points at him. "Why don't you sing for Riot?" The question blindsides him. "What?" "You heard me. Why are you up there like an extra when it's your music?" "It's our music," Kirishima protests. "It's not like I could do it all by myself even if I wanted to. Every piece of it is important." Bakugo makes a strangled noise in the back of his throat. "You don't even try." Now, Kirishima is genuinely affronted. "Look, I don't know what brought this on, but what does it even matter? I'm not telling you how to act, or what roles to pick, or anything. You don't tell me how to handle my music." "At least I know my own worth," Bakugo says, crossing his arms over his head. "Sero might be the world's biggest fucking idiot, but he was right. You let Ashido take the spotlight. You do it on purpose." Kirishima stops himself, shakes his head. "You don't know what you're talking about." "It's pretty damn obvious," Bakugo snaps. "You know what's worse than someone with no talent forcing themselves where they don't belong? Someone who has talent and hides it, who doesn't believe in themselves." Kirishima's voice catches in his throat. He loves music. He's always dreamed of being on stage and sharing his songs with the entire world. It doesn't matter what he wants, what he's dreamed of. He's known that for a long time now. "Thanks for your opinion," he says slowly, voice hollow. "But I can't do anything to change it." "The hell you can't! I can't!" Kirishima says, and it comes out strained. "I freeze up. The minute I open my mouth on stage, I can't do anything. You think I haven't tried? I have. I've been trying for years. And maybe it's easy for you, Bakugo, when you've been acting since you were 4, and you've never had to worry about whether you're good or not. You're amazing, and everyone knows that, but not everyone is that amazing. Not everyone can do what you do. Bakugo was looking at him, with eyes flickering like candlelight. Kirishima can't tell what he's thinking, and for once he's not even trying. He doesn't have the energy to spend on figuring Bakugo out. Not when he's just driven home that Kirishima might never achieve the things he wants to. It's one thing for Ashido to push him to do more, for Kaminari to encourage him. But to be laid bare in front of the one person he wants to impress more than anyone? That's excruciating. It must suck, huh? He says quietly. Having to pretend to be with someone who isn't good enough. Bakugo's face scrunches with irritation. You're so stupid, he says. And there's a quality to his voice that Kirishima can't pass. Yeah, he says. I guess I am. For a second there, he had himself thinking he could be worthy of Bakugo. What a lie he told himself. They don't say anything else to each other, and the bed is big enough that when they both lie down, they don't even touch. Kirishima curls up on his side, acutely aware of the space between them.